Hi, this is Mrs. Kidman, and I am so excited to be teaching about properties of exponents. So we are going to start this video by discussing the properties of the exponents when they're 0 and when our exponents are negative numbers. So let's kind of take a look at what happens in those concepts. So if our exponent here is 0, what's going to happen is for any non-zero number, a, so if a isn't 0 and we raise it to the power of 0, then it's going to equal 1. So basically that says any number raised to the power of 0, unless that number is 0, is going to equal 1. So 4 raised to the power of 0 equals 1, 10 raised to the power of 0 equals 1, pi raised to the power of 0 equals 1. Any number raised to the power of 0 equals 1. The only exception is 0 raised to the power of 0, and that's going to be undefined. Okay, so that's kind of our 0 exponent rule. Anything other than 0 raised to the power of 0 is 1. Now with negative exponents, what's going to happen is we are actually going to do the reciprocal of whatever we see. Or the reciprocal means move it, if it's at the top of a fraction, move it to the bottom. If it's at the bottom of the fraction, move it to the top. So in this case, let's look at an example. Here we have 4 to the negative 2 power. Now notice 4 to the negative 2, that is equal to 1 over 4 to the power of 2, or 4 squared. And that's going to occur because we have that reciprocal. That negative tells us it needs to go to the other place. So this will bring us down to the bottom of a fraction. Okay, that'll happen every time. If we have something that's at the top of a fraction, so if I had like, or I had something at the bottom of a fraction already, so say I had 1 over 4 to the negative 2, then this would be moved to the top, and that's the same as 4 squared. Okay, so that reciprocal just means if it's a whole number, we move it to the bottom of a fraction. If it's the bottom of a fraction, we move it to the top. So let's take a look at a couple of examples on both the 0 exponent and negative exponents. So here this first one is negative 9 to the power of 0. Now our 0 exponent rule says that anything to the power of 0 equals 1. So this is going to equal 1. Now this next one is a negative exponent, 3 to the power of negative 3. Now that means we are going to put it as 1 over 3 to the power of 3, because remember this is a whole number, so we want to move it down to a denominator. And 3 to the power of 3 is 27, so this is going to be 1 over 27. Now let's take a look at this next one. This next one kind of combines the two, so I'm going to break it down. First, I'm going to simplify this top here. Negative 5 to the 0. Well, by the 0 exponent, we know that it's going to be 1 over 2 to the negative 2. Now the negative 2 tells us I'm going to move it from the bottom up to the top. So this is really going to be 2 squared, which equals 4. So these examples up here have all only had numbers in it. Let's take a look at a problem where it has exponents that are either 0 or negative, but there's also variables associated with it. So here's our expression, 3 to the negative 2 power times x to the negative 5 power over y to the 0th power. So what this tells me is where this negative 2 is on top, this 3 to the negative 2 power is on top, and that x to the negative 5 power is on top. Those two powers there, they need to be moved, and we're going to move them down to the bottom of our fraction here. So let's rewrite that and move them down. So now I have 1, because that's all that's left up there, over 3, now that it's moved down, our exponent stops being negative. 3 squared times x to the 5th times y to the 0. And now we can simplify these terms. So 3 squared is 9, so 1 over 9 times x to the 5th. Now that's in its simplified terms, and then y to the 0 is 1, right? Because anything to the power of 0 is 1. So then in the end, we end up getting 1 over 9 times x to the 5th. That's what that complicated mess up here is really saying, 1 over 9 times x to the 5th. So that's how we would do that. Remember, as anything to the power of 0 is 0. If it's a negative exponent, we are going to move it, we're going to do the reciprocal. So if it's in a whole number stance, like it is in number 2 here, we're going to move it to the bottom. If it's in the bottom, like it is in number 3 here, I'm going to move it to the top. Okay, and if it's already set up in this proportion of our fraction, if we have a negative exponent in the numerator, we're going to move it to the denominator, and it's going to have a positive exponent. Okay, we just want to switch it from the top to the bottom if it's negative on top, or from the bottom to the top if it's negative on the bottom.